The noble Lord Blencathra raised some of the problems where pavements can't be pavements. And my particular bugbear are cyclists on pavements that drive me mad. The noble Lord Moylan raised some of the tensions when deciding on how we regulate public spaces, drawing our attention to residents who live on streets where maybe there's pavement cafes. I think those things are worth considering. However, I wanted to return to the points made at the start of this group and so well explained by the noble Baroness Taylor of Stevenage, and also to reference the earlier group on reviving the High Street, because one of the very few positive outcomes of the dreadful lockdown period was the emergence of imaginative ways of creating social engagement outdoors, when lockdown was such an antisocial action that kept us apart from each other. We found ways of connecting. So I'd say that Cafe Society is indeed a positive innovation, and regardless of the differences between the weather and the climate in the UK in comparison with, for example, continental Europe, Brits have taken to this way of enjoying hospitality services, and it's a great boost to that industry that suffered so badly under lockdown. One of the advantages, of course, of this spilling out of Cafe Society onto pavements is that it's allowed smokers and vapers to have a coffee or a drink alongside a cigarette, which I consider, shock horror, to be all very civilised. It's certainly better than huddling outside the doorways in between sips of a drink. So, my lords, I find it rather galling that amendments 458, 459 and 461, all of which one way or another involve restricting smoking outdoors and making those restrictions a precondition of the licence, have been added to this group. Amendments 458 and 461 emphasise that where there's consumption of food or drink, the licence holder must ensure that smoking or vaping does not affect others. This seems an impossible duty. How could it ever be monitored? And it does seem a degree of micromanagement of the life of communities. And it seems a licensee is being threatened that they must prevent smoke drift affecting those in the vicinity, or they won't get a licence. To note, tobacco smoke in outdoor areas is highly diluted and dissipates quickly in atmospheric conditions. So I worry about moves towards such punitive restrictions on people smoking outside when all they're doing is indulging in a legal personal activity. Do we need to over-regulate in such a fashion? Smokers, a minority no doubt, but are perfectly respectable and considerate citizens. And it would be wrong in any way to imply that smokers will, in some cases, or in most cases, willfully blow smoke into people's faces or not be mindful of others in the vicinity. And as to involving vaping in this, to target an anti-smoking device seems just wrong-headed. So many people I know who've stopped smoking did so by taking up vaping and improve their health in the process. So it seems to me that if the proposers of the amendments are so worried about any exposure to tobacco smoke outdoors, this would require a proper scientific study brought before the House, at the very least a national consultation. And I think particularly when I look at Amendment 459, which goes the full hog and states that pavement licences will only be granted by local authorities subject to the condition that smoking is prohibited. It seems that this bill is trying to be used as a backdoor route to try and ban smoking in public places per se. This bill has been packaged as empowering local decision-making. So can we note that local authorities already have the powers at their discretion to regulate smoking in licensed premises and on pavements outside pubs, bars and restaurants with exterior tables and seating? It's up to them. How can we justify using this bill to bring in central government legislation that threatens pubs and cafes to ban smoking outside, or else no licence will be given to them? This seems wholly disproportionate. And to note, such prescriptive rules could well lead to less customers, more high street closures, and certainly for many citizens who, as adults, choose to smoke, less freedom. And that, I think, really does go against the spirit of a levelling up bill, when you have an imposition from the top, from a kind of we know best approach to local matters and individual matters such as smoking, and it'll grate with many people. To conclude then, I appreciate that some people don't like people smoking. Some people find smoking loathsome. One noble baroness has boasted about not tolerating smoke drift. But there's a lot of things that I don't like and that I'd rather not tolerate. I'm not keen on people chewing gum, or people putting on makeup in public, or eating with their mouth open, or people talking loudly or crying babies as I sit with my latte when I want to sit quietly and read my book outside the cafe. But my goodness, my lords, this is society. We tolerate each other. We rub along. And there's something really positive about a cafe society, that we should actually not use it as an excuse to bring in unnecessary regulations that set us at odds with each other, as a means of policing and supervising personal legal behaviour. And just to finish, I don't know whether this will encourage or discourage, but I've noticed that the smoking on the terrace outside of the Lords has been banned, but somehow smoking on the terrace of the other place is perfectly okay. And guess what? It's packed with people who both work at the House of Lords and are also sitting peers in the House of Lords, because it's the only place to go. Not to damage people, but to actually just relax and have a cigarette with a coffee, not breaking the law.
Before my noble friend, the Earl, gets up to respond to this debate, and at the risk of upsetting